What if Rick never invented portal travel? What if Rick's portal gun never existed? No green swirls, no instant exits. No, welp, ruined this dimension, Morty. Let's just go grab a fresh one. In this timeline, Rick never cracks portal physics. He still builds death lasers, sex robots, and illegal brain parasites. But the one thing that lets him treat reality like a disposable coffee cup? Gone. And believe it or not, that one missing gadget is kind of the duct tape keeping the show's logic from collapsing in on itself. Just to give you an idea of how cursed this gets, no portal gun means no Citadel. No Citadel means no Council of Ricks. No Council of Ricks means evil Morty doesn't have a multiversal government to infiltrate and overthrow. That whole genius yellow-eyed dictator of infinite Ricks storyline, deleted from the timeline like one of Jerry's emails. Instead of a god-tier interdimensional criminal, you've got a guy who is suddenly stuck serving his actual sentence in one reality. When Rick Cronenberg's The Planet, he can't just abandon Earth C-137 and slide his family into a nearly identical universe where someone else already did the crime. He has to live on the ruined Earth he broke, with the same Beth, the same Morty, and the same pile of consequences he usually portal hops away from. And you know that line Rick has, where infinite universes are basically his emotional support blanket. Paraphrased, it's like, nothing matters, Morty, because somewhere out there it all worked out. That's not just edgy grandpa philosophy, that's his coping mechanism. So what happens when you delete the coping mechanism from his life but keep all the trauma, the alcoholism and the god complex? Does he finally have to care? Or does he just go even darker because now he's trapped in a cosmic escape room with his own feelings? Without portals, galactic politics get weird fast. The Galactic Federation is still after him, but now he can't just appear in their prison, burp and vanish. Every escape has to be local. Every crime scene is traceable. Every dead alien dictator he leaves behind actually points back to one address in suburban America. That's a hell of a security risk for the Smith family, if you ask me. So in this video, I'm going to break down how yanking one invention out of Rick's lab rewires everything. Rick's personality, the Smith family's fate, the balance of power in the galaxy, and yes, the body count. Is the universe safer without portal travel, or does taking away Rick's favorite exit door make everything even more cursed? Stick around, because reality without the portal gun is about to get very, very stuck. Ground rules. One universe, no green exit door. So before we start ripping apart canon, we need ground rules. What exactly did we delete from Rick's lab? We're not just taking away the green gun as a prop, we're nuking the entire concept of interdimensional portal travel from his brain. No gun, no stable gates, no secret prototype in a shoebox. Rick never cracks the math. He's stuck in one universe, one timeline, like the rest of us losers. That means no hopping to a fresh Earth every time he commits a war crime on the old one. No slipping into a dimension where he already solved his problems and stealing the answer key. When this Rick screws up reality, he has to live in the mess, or die in it. Or knowing him, make everyone else die in it and keep drinking, but don't get too cozy. We are not nerfing Rick into some harmless grandpa who just likes Sudoku. All the other nightmare tech is still on the table. Spaceships? Absolutely. Lasers and doomsday weapons? Obviously. Mind control parasites and body horror biology projects? Believe it or not, those might get even worse when he can't just portal the evidence away. He can still build microverses, clones, killer AI, maybe even dabble in time-related experiments that are probably illegal in, like every galaxy. The key constraint is, everything has to obey one continuous reality. No infinite backup universes. No, I'll just grab another Morty off the rack. Actions have consequences that stack, episode after episode in the same timeline. Just to give you an idea of how brutal that is for Rick, imagine the Cronenberg incident with no escape hatch. You don't get to bury your own corpse and move next door. You get years of therapy in a government tribunal. So here's how we're going to pick this apart. We're going to march chronologically through the show's big events and arcs and ask one simple question every time. What happens when Rick can't just portal away? Some plots will mutate into way slower, dumber versions of themselves. Some completely collapse. Some become 10 times darker because all the pressure has to go somewhere, and it's probably going straight into Rick's already cracked psyche. We're treating this like a fake science experiment. Canon episodes are our data points. We keep the same starting conditions, same Rick, same Smith family, Same Galactic Federation. But whenever the story leans on portal travel, we swap in a more grounded sci-fi workaround. No green door? Maybe it's a stolen Federation ship, a hacked wormhole array, or a painfully manual heist. Then we see what new disasters Rick engineers instead. I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. And if you think the big casualties are the Citadel or Evil Morty, buckle up. The first thing this timeline kills isn't a galactic empire. It's the pilot episode itself, which now has to unfold like a slow, stupid, and way more dangerous heist movie. Let's break that down. Rewriting the pilot. No quick escape from the mega seeds. So, remember the original pilot? Rick staggers into Morty's room, drags him out of school, and suddenly they're in some gross pink sky dimension grabbing megaseeds. Portal in, crime, portal out. Security shows up, Rick opens a doorway like it's an Uber, and that whole airport-style chase ends with him casually stepping back into the Smith garage like he just went for milk. It's chaotic, but it's quick. No layovers, no consequences. Now delete the green circles, no portal gun. Rick still wants those illegal megaseeds, but he's stuck with the sci-fi equivalent of public transit. That means a spaceship, a wormhole shuttle, or some sketchy black market coyote who specializes in smuggling idiots across galactic borders. Travel isn't a jump cut anymore. It's days, flight plans, docking fees, customs. You know, the boring stuff the show normally skips because it has taste. And that changes the crime. Crossing into an alien jurisdiction is now an actual interstellar smuggling operation, not a drive-by theft. Rick has to file falsified manifests, spoof IDs, maybe bribe a Federation officer. Every extra hour in that dimension is another charge: possession with intent, trafficking exotic contraband, resisting arrest when he inevitably shoots someone. Just to give you an idea of how bad that is, we're talking cartel-level sentencing instead of, whoops, I tripped into another universe. For Morty, this goes from wacky truancy to a hell of a kidnapping. In the Aird pilot, he's technically gone for what? A school day and a half. Here, he's missing for an entire off-world crime spree. Multiple nights. No way to pop back home between felonies. Beth and Jerry aren't just mildly annoyed parents, they're calling the cops, the school, probably the National Guard when someone finally admits, yeah, your dad might be in space. Suddenly that he's ruining our son's life speech is a police report, not just a sitcom argument. So how does Rick compensate without his favourite cheat code? He leans harder into the stuff we already know he's good at. Body horror and casual murder. Instead of phasing through security, he cooks up temporary mutations so Morty can literally grow extra eyes to fake an alien biometric scan. Maybe he grafts gills onto himself to sneak in through a waste canal. If you ask me, this Rick feels even more unhinged because every problem is solved with surgery or slaughter instead of a neat little door. And that airport chase? It's not a sprint to a portal. It's a full-length off-world road trip. Hijacked shuttles, stolen keycards, hostages. Rick racks up terrorism charges while Morty is stuck watching bodies pile up with no emergency exit back to his math class. Believe it or not, the shove them up your butt scene is now the least illegal part of the day. Which raises a nasty question. If the pilot is already a drawn-out felony vacation, what happens when Rick Cronenberg's Earth and he can't just abandon C-137 for a clean copy? No portal, no do-over, no graveyard of dead Ricks to hide in. Does he finally stay and fix it, or does he find a way to kill the whole planet instead? Buckle up, because that version of the apocalypse gets very ugly, very fast. Cronenberg Earth with no reset button. So let's rewind Rick Potion number 9, but this time rip the cheat code out of his hands. No portal gun, no infinite backup Earth. Just one Cronenberg nightmare and one very stuck Rick Sanchez staring at the bill for his own apocalypse. In the original episode, you know the drill. Rick and Morty accidentally turn most of humanity into inside-out bug freaks, wander around the horror movie they made, and when it's too big to fix, Rick just shrugs and says, well, we bail. They hop to a nearly identical universe where they conveniently died off-screen, bury their own corpses in the backyard, and slide into their replacements' lives like it's an awkward Tuesday. It's one of the darkest, smartest gags in the show, and it only works because portal travel makes reality disposable. Take that away, and suddenly this isn't a one-episode bit. It's the rest of their lives. No fresh Earth, no clean C-137. The mutated planet is now Rick's only home, and every ruined life is permanently his problem. You don't get to abandon a crime scene when the entire crime scene is the universe you're stuck in. So what does Rick do when he can't run? Option 1. He actually tries to cure it. This is the guy who can cook up love potions, neutrino bombs, and sentient butter robots before breakfast. A large-scale bioengineering project to reverse Cronenberg DNA is exactly the kind of impossible homework he'd give himself out of spite. Picture months of underground labs, captured mutants in tanks, Morty being guilt-tripped into helping because you caused this too, you little idiot. It's humanitarian work that's also, if you ask me, one hell of a cell phone. Option 2. He gives up on most of humanity and carves out a fortified safe zone. Rick builds a walled techno-city over the remains of suburbia, turns the Smith house into a fallout bunker, and lets the rest of the planet stay a monster zoo. That's still a crime against like 7 different Geneva Conventions, but at least the family survives. You'd get rationed food printers, defense turrets, maybe a collar that zaps Jerry every time he opens the door. Option 3 is the really fun one, Warlord Rick. He leans into the wasteland, slaps together a fleet of biotanks, enslaves or weaponizes Cronenbergs, and becomes the drunk god king of Earth Z. No portal travel means no easy Galactic Federation escape, but it also means the Federation now has to decide whether to invade a planet full of weaponized body horror just to arrest one old man. I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. And the Smiths? They don't get swapped out for a quieter, less traumatized set. Beth, Jerry, Summer and Morty have to live in the aftermath. Every grocery run is a raid. Every school day is cancelled forever. Their emotional sentence isn't a few bad days, it's life without parole. Beth's abandonment issues spike because Dad literally broke the world. Jerry's resentment goes nuclear as he realizes his father-in-law made him even more useless. Summer's "my family is messed up" phase now includes dodging limb spiders on the way to the bathroom. Morty, especially, can't compartmentalize. In the show, we know he buries a dead version of himself and kind of moves on. Here, every time he looks out the window, he sees what he helped do. He's dependent on Rick's tech to survive day to day, which makes their power imbalance way worse. You want food? You want clean water? You want to not be eaten by a Cronenberg that used to be your math teacher? Cool, grab a gun, Morty, we're going scavenging. And believe it or not, this is the real fork in the road for No Portal Rick. Does he slowly pivot into a reluctant planetary fixer, rebuilding the world he broke one grotesque cure at a time? Or does he double down, lock in the apocalypse, and turn Earth into such a permanent bio-nightmare that the rest of the galaxy has to rewrite its politics around the freak show at the edge of space? Anyway, whichever way he jumps, the next version of Rick isn't just a cosmic criminal. He's either a war criminal with a country, or with a planet. Rick the Reluctant Planet Mechanic. So what does a war criminal with a planet actually do all day? Does he clock in, punch a time card and go, "Welp, time to manage my apocalypse"? Because without a portal gun, Rick doesn't get to abandon Cronenberg Earth. He's stuck as the reluctant planet mechanic crawling under the hood of the same busted reality every single morning. First problem, containment. You don't get a billion body horror mutants and just hope it works out. Rick's going to be throwing up hard-light walls around entire cities, quarantining continents, and dropping orbital fences like it's SimCity on nightmare mode. You want to visit Grandma? Cool. Enjoy the TSA line where a drunk scientist waves a death ray at your DNA to make sure you're not secretly a flesh spider. Not exactly legal, not exactly optional. Then come the cures, in quotes. Because if you ask me, half of Rick's cure attempts are just new plagues with better branding. 1 month it's aerosolized D-Cronenberger gas, next month it's engineered micro-ecosystems where humans and monsters coexist because he reprogrammed both of their immune systems. Congratulations, you're alive, but technically your white blood cells now have a tiny Rick watermark. That's going to be a hell of a consent form. Here's the real horror show. He can't walk away from any of it. Every failed serum, every containment breach, every city that mutates twice, same sky, same planet, same Morty watching the news. Rick has to iterate on his own failures in public in real time, with no multiverse reset button. Does that soften him because he's stuck seeing the fallout on Beth's actual face every day? Or does he go full authoritarian lab coat, deciding that if everyone's going to blame him anyway, he might as well run the place like a science dictatorship? And governments are not going to chill about this. Earth's leaders and the Galactic Federation both look at Rick and see the same thing. Bioterrorist. but also IT support. He's the guy who broke the server and the only one who knows the admin password. So you get this disgusting power dynamic where presidents invite him to summits, scream at him on live TV, then immediately ask for more containment domes. The Federation slaps a cosmic do not approach sticker on Earth, but they're still sending probes, still trying to recruit, arrest, or assassinate him on alternate Tuesdays. All of that absolutely wrecks his favourite bit, the nothing matters shtick. You can't say existence is meaningless when you're literally scheduling maintenance windows for the apocalypse. Every day he doesn't fix something is a day more people die in ways he can't pretend are abstract. He's tethered to the same coordinates, the same graveyards, the same broken neighbourhoods Morty has to walk through to get to whatever's left of school. Believe it or not, that kind of repetition either cracks your nihilism or turns it into pure weaponized self-loathing. And just to give you an idea of how cornered he is, buckle up for the next problem. At some point, the Federation is going to decide this freak show planet is too unstable to ignore. No portals, no easy extradition dodge, no, I'll just blink to another timeline. What happens when the most paranoid empire in the galaxy shows up in orbit, and Rick, for once, has nowhere to run but down? Galactic Federation versus a Rick who can't vanish. So picture the Galactic Federation watching Earth like it's a raccoon rummaging through their cosmic trash cans, and realizing this raccoon is a 70-year-old alcoholic super genius who can't actually leave the neighborhood. That changes everything. Canon Rick is a multiversal cockroach. Squash him in one reality, he pops up in another. Our no portal Rick, still a cockroach, but now he's trapped in the same kitchen as you. Canon Rick is a nightmare for law enforcement because he's not just off planet, he's off reality. He commits a crime, pops a green hole in the air, and suddenly your arrest warrant is literally in the wrong universe. Here, he's stuck in one timeline, one star map, one set of extradition treaties he's going to ignore. He's still insanely dangerous, but for the first time he's technically trackable. You can build a file on this guy instead of just a shrine of rage. So the Federation's logic shifts from how do we police infinity to how do we lock down one really annoying sandbox. Instead of chasing portal signatures across dimensions, they go full TSA on a galactic scale. Surveillance grids, ship registries, wormhole checkpoints. Earth becomes a blinking red dot on every Federation display. High value, finite threat. You don't need a Council of Ricks task force. You need a persistent blockade and a lot of paperwork. And then you hit the flashpoints. Cronenberg Earth? Without a multiverse eject button, that incident isn't, oops, time to abandon this timeline. It's a biohazard event of record. The Federation is probably going to quarantine the planet so hard NASA gets a nosebleed. Orbital minefields, no-fly zones, maybe a legal designation like Class X Experimental Zone, which is a fancy way of saying this whole ball of mud is a lab accident we're politely not nuking. But Rick is too valuable to just wall off, so of course they try to recruit him, offer amnesty for his past crimes if he builds weapons, stabilizes outbreaks, maybe runs Black Ops projects on his own homeworld. Carrot, unlimited funding and legal immunity. Stick, cooperate, or we turn Earth into a supervised prison planet and your family into leverage. Believe it or not, that's probably the nice version. Without portals, Rick has to adapt. No more chaotic hit-and-run terror across realities. He pivots to the long game. Stealth tech that spoofs Federation sensors. Robotic decoys committing crimes while he's at home making pancakes with Morty. Political manipulation, playing Earth's governments against the Federation so any attack on him looks like an illegal act of war. He basically speedruns from mad scientist to insurgent warlord, or reluctant collaborator, depending on which day you catch him drunk. And just to give you an idea of how paranoid both sides get, buckle up for the endgame question. With no multiverse to hide in, does Rick finally lose? Do they actually capture him? And if they do, what does maximum security for Rick Sanchez even look like when you only have one universe to work with, and one old man who's already outsmarted it once? The Citadel that never was. So, if nobody can hop dimensions, what happens to the biggest multiversal group chat in the show, the Citadel of Ricks? Short answer, it never gets built. Long answer, buckle up because we're about to delete an entire political system from reality. The Citadel only works if you can do one very specific, very illegal thing on repeat. Grab infinite versions of the same narcissistic grandpa from infinite timelines and drop them into one giant floating strip mall. That's not carpooling, that's metaphysical human trafficking. Without portal travel, you don't get that. You can't just casually open a green hole and yank a Rick out of Dimension 137-B on a Tuesday. Our timeline has hard walls, one universe, one continuous map, no shortcuts. So what do other Ricks look like now? At best, they're just weirdly similar guys scattered across one cosmos. Maybe there's a Rick on the other side of the galaxy, maybe there isn't. Either way, you're not dealing with an infinite swarm of lab coats, you're dealing with a handful of rare prodigies who probably never meet. Any Council of Ricks in this setup is not a multiversal city-state. It's a tiny, paranoid group chat on an encrypted frequency, 5 old men arguing about whose doomsday device is bigger, and the cultural fallout is massive. No Citadel means no standardized Rickness, no DMV of the soul where you line up and get told what kind of Rick you're supposed to be. There's no Rick bureaucracy, no Rick cops, no Rick president shaking hands with Rick janitors. You lose that big visual metaphor where the show screams, "Look how much this guy hates himself, he literally built an empire out of his own face." Without that backdrop, our Rick can't rebel against Rick society, because there isn't one. He's not one of many. He's not a defective product off the Rick assembly line. He's closer to a myth, a rumour. The Rick, or one of, 3, and that does something nasty to your self-image. On a good day, it probably inflates his ego to cosmic levels. If you ask me, a Rick who thinks he's unique is a hell of a lot scarier than one who knows he's replaceable. On a bad day, it just makes the isolation worse. You're not lost in a crowd, you're alone at the top. And here's the part that should make you nervous. No Citadel means no Citadel to overthrow. Evil Morty can't run a campaign against a multiversal Rick regime that never existed. So his origin story has to crawl out of something way smaller and way more personal. No faceless Rick empire. Just one universe, one Rick, one kid who decides he's done being the sidekick. Believe it or not, that version of Evil Morty might be quieter, but it's definitely more terrifying. Because if he's not trying to destroy a system, he's just trying to destroy Rick. Anyway, if that's what happens when you erase one building, wait till you see what happens when we mess with time itself. Evil Morty without a multiverse to hate. So if you erase the Citadel, the Council, and the infinite Rick bureaucracy, what happens to the kid who was built to burn it all down? You don't delete Evil Morty. You just shrink his playground and crank up the pressure. Canonical Evil Morty is basically a walking class action lawsuit against Ricks. He starts as the quiet sidekick, then weaponizes the Citadel's elections, rigs an entire police state, and uses brainwashed Ricks and Mortys like disposable chess pieces. He hijacks a multiversal hub, wipes out the Council, and walks away like, "Cool, I just overthrew God, what's for lunch?" His whole crime spree is payback for systemic Rick abuse on a cosmic scale. Now take away portal travel, no infinite Ricks, no Citadel, no comfy target labelled the system. What's left? A Morty who still hates Rick-type people, arrogant geniuses, smug scientists, every lab coat that treats lives like lab rats. Only now his world is one universe, one government, one Rick. The abuse is smaller on paper, but it's way closer to the bone. In a single universe setup, Evil Morty doesn't become less dangerous. He just has to get creative. He could go full revolutionary inside the Galactic Federation, leaking Rick's illegal experiments, exposing black sites, radicalizing every species Rick has ever casually screwed over. Picture him testifying before some space senate, tiny kid, giant war crimes PowerPoint, calmly listing Rick's body count while Rick rolls his eyes in the back row, or he drops the politics and goes terrorist. One target. Rick. No multiversal escape hatch. No, I'll just bail to a better timeline. He sabotages Rick's ships, corrupts his AI, turns Rick's own gadgets into booby traps. Every time Rick builds a new death ray, it mysteriously misfires at the last second. Accident? Or Morty quietly rewriting Grandpa's code at 3 a.m. I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. Alternate path 3. Charismatic cult leader. But instead of worshipping Ricks, it's the opposite. He rallies non-genius species, failed students, every dumb person Rick ever mocked. Buckle up, idiots, we're taking the universe back from the smart guys. It's petty. It's ideological. It's a hell of a midlife crisis to be having at 14. Here's the real psychological twist, though. Without a multiverse, every casualty sticks. No backup Beth, no spare Summer, no, we can just slide into another dimension where this didn't happen. Evil Morty can't tell himself he's sacrificing infinite nobodies to save some abstract greater good. Every death is the only version of that person who will ever exist. You think that slows him down, or makes him even colder? Because now, when he pulls a trigger, he knows exactly what he's erasing. Pattern interrupt. Forget the Citadel. Imagine Evil Morty walking into the Smith garage, same universe, no portals, looks Rick in the eye and says, "You don't get to leave. You fix what you broke or I burn it all." No grand plan, no cosmic chessboard, just one kid, one Rick, and no way out. And if you trap Rick in one timeline with that Morty, wait till you see what happens when they both start playing with time instead of space. Beth's second abandonment. Does Rick even come home? So if Rick can't bail to another reality, what does that do to the one person he already bailed on? Yeah, I'm talking about Beth, the original abandoned sidekick who didn't even get a cool catchphrase out of it. Buckle up, because without portals, Rick's parenting record goes from mysterious cosmic exile to deadbeat dad who just never called. In canon, Rick disappearing for decades has this sci-fi shine on it. He's from somewhere else. He's been running from the Galactic Federation. He's got a portal gun, a tragic backstory, and maybe a dead Diane in some other universe. It's awful, but it's also mythologized. Beth can kind of tell herself, he was gone because of big space stuff. It's almost romantic, if you ask me, in the way people romanticize a tornado. No portal gun, strip all that away, suddenly his options are way uglier. Option 1, he stays in this universe, working off-world, bouncing between space stations and illegal labs, but never once checks in on his kid. Option 2, he gets trapped in deep space, but we know this man can build a ship out of garbage and depression, so staying lost for decades feels like a choice. Option 3 is the nastiest. He's been physically reachable the whole time and just didn't bother. No multiverse, no infinite versions, just one Rick who looked at one Beth and said, "Pass." When he finally staggers back into that garage, it hits different. Believe it or not, sorry, I was fighting space fascists sounds way less impressive when you technically could have sent a postcard. Beth doesn't get to put him on a cosmic pedestal. She has to file him emotionally next to every regular parent who skipped town and started a new life 2 cities over. That's a hell of a downgrade, so her core wound gets sharper, not softer. He didn't vanish into grand sci-fi tragedy, he just left. And now, every time he grabs Morty for an adventure, Beth isn't watching a legendary outlaw mentor the next generation. She's watching the same guy who abandoned her try out a sequel with her son. How does she react? 2 ways, and they're both kind of terrifying. Version 1. Beth goes full Warden. She's policing every trip, demanding itineraries, calling his ship at 3 a.m. like, "Put my kid on the phone right now or I'm calling the actual cops." She knows what it felt like when Rick walked out once. She's not letting him drag Morty into the same black hole. Version 2. Beth does the opposite. She becomes weirdly permissive because she's convinced that if she pushes back too hard, he'll leave again. You can almost hear her. If Morty going on some dangerous space run is the price of Rick staying, maybe that's just what a cool mum does. It's emotional blackmail, but she's the one blackmailing herself. Either way, every adventure is now a custody battle in disguise. Rick isn't just risking Morty's life, he's relitigating Beth's childhood every time the garage door opens. And if Beth actually starts enforcing rules, grounding Morty, maybe even calling out the child endangerment in real time, does Morty still end up as Rick's default partner in crime? Or does Rick look around this one universe, no portals, no backups, and quietly start grooming someone else to be his ride or die? Morty the sidekick, or Summer the successor. So who actually gets drafted into Grandpa's War now? The pliable 14-year-old with chronic anxiety? Or the teenage girl who's already Googled gaslighting and war crimes in the same study session? In canon, Morty is the perfect sidekick because he's basically emotional putty. Low self-esteem, desperate for validation, and convinced Rick is the smartest man in the universe, so if Rick says this is fine, Morty believes it, at least for a few days. And the portal gun is Rick's ultimate parental alibi. You can shove Morty through a black market asteroid casino, a Cronenberg apocalypse, 3 alien dictatorships, and still portal him back into math class before the bell rings. Beth sees a sleepy kid at dinner, not a child who technically just committed interstellar arms trafficking. Take away portals and that whole scam collapses. Every trip is a road trip now. You want to hit a Federation black site? That's weeks in deep space. You want to rob some alien bank? Congratulations, Morty's missing for days, the school calls, Jerry panics. Beth starts checking hospitals. Rick can't just yoink him home between periods. The logistics become a hell of a red flag. The longer Morty's gone, the more it looks like what it always was, kidnapping with extra steps. So Beth starts saying no. Jerry, for some reason, actually has a point for once. And Rick looks at this increasingly grounded, increasingly supervised Morty and goes, yeah, this liability is going to get me caught. Enter Summer. Older, more rebellious, way less impressed by Rick's I'm a god routine, and crucially, she understands the stakes. She's not being gaslit with, it's just science, Morty. She's hearing, this is illegal as hell and the Galactic Federation will flay us, and going, cool, what's my cut? For long non-portal missions, you don't want a panicked kid. You want someone who can lie to mom over text and hide a laser pistol in her crop top. Believe it or not, Summer is the better criminal hire. That flips the whole tone of the show. Morty's not Rick's partner in crime anymore. He's the guy left at home dealing with the fallout. Rick and Summer are out there doing space politics, cutting black market deals, maybe toppling a regime before brunch, and Morty's stuck on Earth living through the sanctions, refugee crises and alien propaganda that roll in afterward. He's doom-scrolling galactic Reddit like, cool, my grandpa and sister just destabilized another sector. That's going to be great for gas prices. Pattern interrupt. Imagine those Summer joins Rick episodes as the default timeline. Cold open isn't Rick dragging Morty out of school. It's Morty watching a news alert. Local human teen and wanted scientist sees Federation dreadnought. Cut to Summer shotgunning alien beer on live TV while Rick argues about tariffs with a squid senator. Morty's biggest adventure is trying to explain to his civics teacher why the new history textbook has a chapter called The Smith Doctrine. And if you ask me, that version of Morty, stuck on the ground, watching the sky literally change colour because of his family's choices, is way closer to the emotional core Rick's been running from. No infinite escape hatch, no portal to a fresh universe, just one kid, one planet, and the long, ugly sentence of living with what Rick and Summer did yesterday. So if Rick can't portal out of the consequences, does he finally stop? Or does he just aim bigger? Jerry's fate in a universe Rick can't escape. So if Rick can't portal out of the consequences, does he finally stop? Or does he just aim bigger? Cool question. Now let's talk about the one guy who absolutely does not want to find out, Jerry. With portals, Jerry's basically background radiation. Annoying, ever-present, but you can ignore it if you've got enough gadgets and alcohol. Rick gets bored. He can literally hop to a timeline where Jerry's dead, or divorced, or never scored Beth in the first place. You've seen it. He treats entire universes like failed save files. Jerry's just one more NPC in a game Rick can always restart. Take away portal travel and suddenly this is a hell of a different game. One universe, one Beth, one Jerry. No backup Earth where Jerry got eaten by a space snake off screen. Rick is stuck on the same couch, in the same living room, with the same insecure dude who keeps asking, "Are you mad at me?" every 5 minutes. You lock those two in one reality long enough, that's not a sitcom, that's a pressure cooker. And Rick's usual move, "Ugh, this Jerry sucks, let's go to a better one," is off the table. So what does he do? If you ask me, the bullying stops being a bit and starts feeling like a project. Less cartoon pranks, more grounded attempts to remove Jerry from the family equation. You can absolutely picture Rick engineering a totally random work accident, or nudging Jerry into some illegal scheme that conveniently gets him locked up for a long, long sentence, while Rick consoles Beth with, "Wow, what a tragedy. Anyway, pass the wine." But buckle up, because that bottle can shake two ways. Under constant existential threat, Jerry might finally grow a spine. When your father-in-law is a domestic supervillain and you can't escape to some off-screen timeline where you're secretly cool, you either level up or you break. Jerry could become paranoid, start documenting Rick's crimes, call the government, maybe even cut a deal with the Galactic Federation. Snitch Jerry? I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. Or he goes the other direction and just implodes. Deeper incompetence, deeper paranoia, full the walls are breathing energy. Remember, Rick's chaos is now inescapable. No multiverse, no reset button, just the same house, the same marriage, and a genius who can definitely build weapons even if he can't build a portal gun. And speaking of that marriage, Beth and Jerry don't get a metaphorical escape hatch either. No, somewhere out there's a version of us that worked out. Every fight about Rick is suddenly way more loaded. Does Beth side with the dad who can save the world, or the husband who can barely save his job? Without portal travel, their separation arc is probably messier, slower, and way more realistic. Years of resentment, counselling, ugly compromises, and the kids watching in real time. By the way, Jerry's odds of surviving all this? They might have less to do with Jerry, and way more to do with how dark Rick gets when he realises there is literally nowhere else to run from his own family. Sponsor: break from a universe with no portals. Which is a fun vibe for the kids, right? Watching Grandpa slowly realise he can't just emotionally portal away from Thanksgiving. Speaking of being trapped with your choices, this video is sponsored by absolutely no one from another dimension. Do you hate being trapped in a single finite universe where your mistakes have consequences? Well, too bad, because in today's timeline that's illegal to complain about. You get one universe, no exchanges, no store credit. Buckle up. Let me introduce you to our totally real, definitely not morally questionable product, Galactic VPN. You've heard of masking your location online. Galactic VPN masks your location across exactly one sad, lonely universe. That's right. You can browse the same 3 government-censored networks, the same Rick-wanted posters, and the same therapy memes Jerry keeps reposting, but now with a cool neon logo. Worried the Galactic Federation is tracking your crimes? Good news. Without portals, you're probably not important enough. Bad news. If they are tracking you, Galactic VPN can't do anything about it. It just changes your IP from Earth to Still Earth Stop Trying. Or maybe you're more of a self-help person. Our second sponsor from this no-portal reality is a life-changing 8-week course, Accepting You Only Get One Earth. Week 1. Learning that you can't Cronenberg your planet and then just hop over to the next suburb where everyone still has skin. Week 2. Understanding that when you ruin Thanksgiving, you don't get to switch to a universe where your family still invites you. Week 3. Apologizing to Morty in the same timeline where you broke his brain chemistry in the first place. Just to give you an idea of how rough this curriculum is, the final exam is literally, look your Beth in the eyes and admit you can't leave. No portal, no reset, no C-137 was the cool one escape clause. You just sit in your consequences like a normal emotionally damaged mammal. And the wild part. That's kind of the point. Without infinite do-overs, you actually have to care about what you do to your planet, your family, and your own brain chemistry. Rick can't just treat Earth like a rental car he's going to abandon at a different airport. Every crime he commits, every illegal experiment, every oops, I turned the neighbours into body horror fan art moment stacks up in the same continuity. If you ask me, that's a hell of a reality check. Even our sponsors can't bail you out here. No brand deal is going to swoop in and say, use code Morty for 10% off extra dimensional witness protection. Rick Cronenberg's the world in this universe. He has to clean it. Personally, with a mop, and probably Jerry. Anyway, now that we've monetized your existential dread, let's talk about what Rick builds instead of a portal gun when he still wants to break reality. If not portals, then what? Rick's new obsessions. So if Rick can't just Irish goodbye an entire dimension, what does he build instead? What does a grounded, no-portal Rick do when he still wants god powers, but has to stay in the same cosmic neighbourhood as his mistakes? Buckle up, because the toy box is still a nightmare. He's got advanced spacecraft, for starters. We're talking FTL drives, cloaking, probably something that technically violates like 12 Space Geneva conventions at once. Without portals, that ship becomes his lifeline and his getaway car, which means every interstellar crime is now traceable. No more whoops, slipped into Earth C-137b, can't extradite me. He's on the grid. Then you get time-adjacent experiments. Not full-on Back to the Future, but time dilation chambers, localized rewinds, memory scrubbing, save points. Rick already freezes time once. In a no-portal world, he's going to live there. If you ask me, that's where he really goes off the rails legally and morally. Why run from your crimes when you can just rewind the witness, delete the trauma and try again? Layer on AI and robotics. We've seen Rick make sentient butter robots as a joke. Now imagine he pours that energy into a standing army of smart drones, legal fall guys, and digital Ricks. Who committed the crime, Your Honor? Me, or the copy of me that I wiped and reformatted yesterday? Enjoy that jurisdictional nightmare. Bioengineering stays on the menu. Custom plagues, designer parasites, organ farms, and oops, I turned your planet into a test tube incidents. But without a portal exit, he can't just Cronenberg and bail. Every outbreak is happening to his one and only universe, which means his solution is going to be way darker. Edit reality from the inside. That's where psychic amplification and nested universes come in. No Citadel, no Council, but Rick still knows how to stack realities. Picture a version of the Battery Universe episode where his car battery isn't just powering the ship, it's a full backup of Earth. He regularly clones his entire universe, runs horrible experiments on backup Earth for 3.7, and when things get too illegal even for him, he restores from an older save. Everyone you know dies, but you never notice because your replacement has your memories up to last Tuesday. Or a time dilation lab, a room where 1 minute outside is 1,000 years inside. Rick screws up, ducks into the box, lets a whole civilization rise, worship him, collapse, and stabilize laws that excuse whatever he did. Then he walks out 10 seconds later with historical precedent and a pocket full of loyal time refugees. Just to give you an idea of how bad that is, that's billions of potential murders compressed into a weekend project. The scale of his crimes changes. Instead of abandoned graveyard dimensions, you get fragmented timelines, populations trapped in loops, mass memory wipes. Nobody even remembers what they're angry about. Which, from a sentencing perspective, is a hell of a power move. And if Rick can't leave the universe, maybe he starts editing it line by line. Believe it or not, that might be worse than just walking away from a broken one. So what does a court do with a guy who can reload reality like a save file? Legal microbreak. Is reality editing worse than dimension hopping? Okay, legal microbreak. Because if you ask me, this is where it gets really gross. What's actually worse? Rick Cronenberging an entire planet and piecing out through a green hole in the wall, or staying in that same universe and quietly editing everyone's brains until they forget he did it? Like, is it less bad to be the interdimensional hit-and-run guy, or the cosmic witness tampering guy? You'd think abandoning your home dimension after turning it into a body horror art project is the worst option. But take away portals and Rick can't flee the scene. He's stuck. So what does a stuck Rick do? He doesn't repent. He revises. With portal travel, the crime is loud. Buildings melt, people mutate, Morty screams, and then Rick and Morty just hop to Earth C137-ish and grab new versions of the family. Visible destruction, clear body count. Easy for a prosecutor to point at the smoking crater and go, yeah, that's the murder. No portal gun though. Now the harm goes invisible. Same level of chaos, but instead of leaving, Rick fires up some reality editing tech, wipes memories, rewinds timelines a few days, and suddenly nobody remembers being a flesh slug. No funerals, no outrage, no evidence. Everybody's just walking around with this weird emotional hangover they can't explain. That's not just bioterrorism anymore, that's gaslighting an entire civilization. In real-world law, fleeing the scene is bad. You hit a car, you drive off, that's a solid felony. But tampering with evidence and threatening witnesses, judges hate that. You're attacking the system's ability to even know a crime happened. Just to give you an idea of how intense that is, you can turn a couple of years for the original crime into decades just by lying, shredding documents, and nudging people to forget things. Rick without portals is forced into that second category on a multiversal scale. He can't be the guy who leaves, he has to be the guy who edits. He's basically doing deepfake surgery on reality itself. That's way creepier. With portals, Rick is cartoon chaos. Blow up a government, jump away, cosmic slapstick. Without them, he's creeping down the hallway at 3 a.m, adjusting your save file while you sleep. Psychological horror. You wake up, your mum is slightly different, your dad remembers a vacation you never took, and Morty's the only one who feels wrong about it, and that feeds straight back into the Smith house. Beth starts noticing tiny continuity errors in family photos. Jerry remembers winning arguments he definitely lost, Summer swears the garage door used to squeak. Morty has déjà vu so bad he's basically living in a permanent panic attack. Believe it or not, that turns the show into a paranoid thriller. No Citadel, no council, just one universe, and a grandpa who might be illegally editing your memories every time you go to sleep. Which raises the next problem. What happens when the evidence starts slipping through anyway? Home life in a glitched reality. The Smiths start to notice. When the edits start leaking, you don't get jump scares. You get Tuesdays that won't stay dead. You wake up, eat cereal, argue about the butter robot, go to bed, and then wake up to the exact same soggy cereal and the exact same argument, but everyone swears it's Wednesday. That's not just déjà vu. That's a rerun with new commercials. Beth's the first one to label it. We're all under a lot of stress. Classic. Medical degree, horse doctor, and suddenly she's also chief denial officer. News anchor says the president died last week. Beth says, "No, that was a drill we heard about at work." Only problem? Her co-workers remember it the opposite way. Somebody's lying and it might be reality. Jerry, meanwhile, goes full Reddit thread. He starts a corkboard in the bedroom. Newspaper clippings, Polaroids, receipts from gas stations that no longer exist. He's connecting string like he's solving an interdimensional crime, except technically, he's not allowed to know interdimensions are even on the menu. Every time a scar shows up on his arm that he doesn't remember, he adds a pin. By day 3, the board looks like Rick's browser history, chaotic and deeply illegal. Summer's not buying the stress thing. She's seen enough weird to recognize a pattern. Same neighbor mowing the lawn in the same shirt 3 days in a row. The family photo on the mantle quietly updating, like someone swapped out a Jerry mid-season. She starts watching Rick the way Rick watches everyone else. Phone out secret recordings, time-stamped videos of the living room changing between frames. Believe it or not, she's basically building a case file. Morty doesn't say anything, which is its own kind of scream. He's got this haunted look, like he's remembering episodes that technically never aired. The coffee table that used to be a different colour, the way the garage door used to squeak. A bruise pattern on his ribs that matches a memory of a monster he's never fought. He's quietly realising this is all familiar from past adventures Rick swore didn't happen here. And because Rick can't portal out, every bad decision just stays. No swapping to a fresh Earth. No Welp, Cronenberg this one, Morty, and bailing. The Smith house turns into a long-term haunted site of sci-fi residue. Time-frozen fruit on the counter that never rots but keeps slightly changing shape. A closet door that opens to the same hallway, but the wallpaper is wrong by 2 pixels. You're basically living in a sitcom set nobody's allowed to reset. Emotionally, that's a hell of a way to live. Imagine realizing your grandpa might have edited your childhood like a YouTube playlist. Every fight with Beth, every near divorce, every time Morty cried in his room. Did that actually happen? Or did Rick fix it at 3 a.m. because he got sentimental and drunk? How do you trust anyone when yesterday might be a patch note? So the family starts to polarize. Beth leans harder on Rick. If reality is broken, you cling to the guy who holds the duct tape. Jerry moves the other way, preaching open rebellion between panic attacks. Summer's on the fence, but she's stockpiling evidence. Morty's the tiebreaker, and he already knows that calling Rick out is going to be like suing your own surgeon while he's still holding your heart. Eventually they snap. Living room, TV off, everyone facing Rick. They demand answers. No jokes, no burps, just, what did you do to our lives? And here's the cliff you're dangling from. What happens when the one guy who can fix everything is also the one who broke it? And this time, with no portals, he's got nowhere else to go but them. Confronting the architect, Rick versus his own family. Rick does what he always does in a crisis. He reaches for a joke and a bottle at the same time. Wow, family meeting without pizza. That's actually the illegal part here. But nobody laughs, not even Jerry. You know it's bad when Jerry has a backbone and Rick's the one cornered on the couch like a raccoon in a lab coat. Beth starts. Of course she does. How many times did you fix me? Not help, not save, fix. She's got receipts, memories that don't line up, medical records that mysteriously vanish. That one fight with Jerry she swears ended in divorce. Except it didn't. Morty piles on with his own glitches. Déjà vu that feels like whole days. waking up with bruises from adventures he doesn't remember. Summer straight up calls it, "You reality roofied us, didn't you?" That's not just a crime, that's a hell of a family court case. So what does Rick do? Option 1, classic deflection. He shrugs, burps, says, "Look, you're alive, right? Gold star for Grandpa." He wraps it in nihilism, the same speech you've heard 100 times. Nothing matters. The universe is random. Your consent is a rounding error in cosmic math. If you ask me, that's Rick's emotional shoplifting. He steals their outrage and replaces it with confusion. Option 2 is darker. No portals means no instant escape, so he might lean harder on gaslighting. You really think you'd notice a reset, Morty? Your brain can't even handle pre-algebra. He starts poking holes in their memories, makes Beth doubt her own childhood, makes Jerry wonder if he actually did sign something once. It's not just morally gross, it's basically a psychological identity theft with a life sentence. But in this no-portal timeline, you also unlock option 3, the glitch in Rick's armor. Vulnerability. Believe it or not, being chained to one universe means he has to live with these people tomorrow, so maybe he cracks. He admits to specific edits. The time he rewound a day because Morty died on an experimental time travel treadmill. The night Beth bled out on an alien operating table, and he hard reset the whole evening. He frames it as triage. I screw up, I fix it, or you're all dead. Those are the only buttons on the console. That confession hits different. Beth hears, "I chose you," and doubles down on her attachment, even as she realizes her dad's love comes bundled with cosmic malpractice. Morty hears, "I killed you once," and you can see the hero worship evaporate in real time. Summer, for some reason, just gets madder. A fully manipulative Rick is the final straw. She starts planning resistance like it's a group project and he's the deadweight. And then Rick does a pattern interrupt so awkward you can feel the second-hand cringe from space. He pulls out actual paperwork. A reality alteration consent form, checkboxes for minor timeline edits, memory adjustments, full existential reboot. Signature lines next to, "I understand Grandpa Rick is probably going to lie anyway." It's cosmic violation turned into dinner table bureaucracy. Is it accountability, or just a new layer of control with better branding? You don't know. They don't know. But once you start regulating Rick like he's the DMV of existence, you set up the next question. What happens when the universe outside that living room decides it wants its own consent form from him? Universe-wide. Fallout. A more grounded, more terrifying galaxy. The universe wants a consent form from Rick. Okay, buckle up, because without portals, the universe actually gets a shot at serving him the paperwork. No more blink-and-you-miss-it raids where Rick pops in, steals a mega weapon, and vanishes into a green hole like your paycheck on rent day. Every conflict with an alien empire becomes local, slow, messy. You don't get in and out in 30 seconds, Morty. You get 6-year campaigns, trench planets, and actual occupation forces trying to hold territory Rick just nuked out of spite. He can't just Cronenberg a world and hop to the next. He has to live with the neighbours who watched him do it. So when Rick pisses off the Galactic Federation now, they don't chase a ghost. They chase a guy with a mailing address. Wars with Rick become seasons, not episodes. He blows up a Federation outpost. They blockade his entire spiral arm. He sabotages a prison ship. They deploy peacekeeping fleets that park over every major world he's ever visited. It's less smash and grab, more World War Rick. And the Federation Propaganda Department? Oh, they are eating this up. You think your government loves a good boogeyman? Imagine having one Rick, trackable, photographable, memeable. Every explosion, every bioweapon, every illegal experiment gone wrong gets tagged with the same face. This is the terrorist Rick Sanchez. Report sightings immediately. They roll out Rick drills in alien schools. They slap his mug on every TSA scanner in the galaxy. Just to give you an idea of how paranoid it gets, owning a garage lab with more than 3 lasers probably lands you on a watch list. That fear becomes the excuse for everything. More surveillance, more militarization, more secret prisons floating in deep space. They can point at a single, ongoing crime spree and go, "See, we need bigger guns." And if you ask me, Rick kind of loves that they're scared enough to overreact. Meanwhile, without infinite Ricks cluttering the leaderboard, the Genius power rankings get very clear. No Council of Ricks, no Citadel, no multiversal curve to grade on. It's Rick, a handful of rival scientists and a bunch of warlords trying to reverse engineer whatever nightmare he just deployed. His tech becomes the standard. Black market Sanchez drives, knockoff Rick-class annihilation cannons. Every petty tyrant wants the bootleg version of his brain. Culturally, he stops being a mysterious cosmic rumour and turns into a long-term historical problem. Generations grow up with stories about the Sanchez incident on their homeworld, or the time he half-fixed a plague and then bailed when the paperwork got boring. There are documentaries, revisionist documentaries, Rick Truther forums arguing whether he was right to destabilize the Federation. And the scary part, in this reality, he doesn't vanish into another timeline when it all gets too heavy. He's a permanent fixture in one increasingly unstable galaxy, and the history books haven't even finished his chapter yet. Rick without an escape hatch. So let's zoom in on the scariest part of that permanent fixture. What does it do to Rick's brain when he can't just uninstall reality and download a new one? Canon Rick has a hell of a coping mechanism. You've seen it 100 times. Someone dies, a planet collapses, Morty is traumatized for like the 6th time that day, and Rick basically goes, "Hey, infinite universes, kid. None of this matters. It's the multiverse version of, it was just a prank, bro. If there are endless Beths and Mortys, then any single atrocity gets emotionally laundered. You didn't really kill your family, you just stopped hanging out with that particular save file. Now delete portal travel." Suddenly that trick is illegal in his own head. There is only one Beth, one Morty, one Earth, one timeline where you Cronenberg the population, and you don't get to quietly hop to Earth C137. Every death is a hard delete. Every mistake is uniquely irreversible. You don't get to bury your own corpse in the backyard and pretend it was some other guy's crime. What does a mind like Rick's do with that? 2 options, and neither is comforting. Option 1. He softens. Not because he finds religion or starts doing yoga with Jerry, but because the math changes. When you know this Morty is the only Morty you're ever going to get, you probably stop treating him like a disposable NPC. Every time he drags Morty into space, that's not one of infinite runs. It's the only run. That's a different kind of terror. Believe it or not, that might be the one thing that can bully Rick Sanchez into caring. The knowledge that if he breaks this kid, he can't swap him out. Option 2, he hardens. He goes full cornered animal. If you can't escape the universe, you try to dominate it. No portals means no Council of Ricks to rebel against, but it also means no safety net. Every threat is final. Every enemy is permanent. That's the perfect recipe for a guy who already builds neutrino bombs for fun to start preemptively controlling everything. Galactic Federation breathing down his neck. In a no-portal world, he can't disappear. He has to overkill. And without other Ricks to project onto, the self-hatred has nowhere to go. In canon, he can say, "All Ricks are trash," and spread the blame around. Here, every crime, every dead planet, every crying Beth loops back to exactly one man who can't leave his own mess. You think he drinks a lot now? Buckle up. The bottle becomes the closest thing he has to a portal gun. It's the only way out of his own head, even if it's just for a few days at a time. So which version do we get? The reluctant, slightly more human Rick who's forced to live with what he's done, or the nuclear option Rick, who decides that if he can't exit the universe, he's going to break it from the inside? If you ask me, the answer is going to decide whether this timeline survives the next episode. High-level atrocity. When Rick tries to patch the whole universe. So let's say we don't get the sadder, slightly softer Rick. We get the nuclear option one. The Rick who looks at a single non-portal universe that he's wrecked over decades and goes, "Okay, fine, I'll just fix everything. All of it." You ready for that? Because, buckle up. By late series, no portal Rick is sitting on a hell of a backlog. Cronenberg-style ecological collapse from some failed cure, Galactic Federation proxy wars he stirred up, reality glitches from half-finished time experiments, and a Smith family that's basically a walking group therapy session with weapons. Beth's in full abandonment spiral, Jerry's clinging to whatever's left, Morty's traumatized but loyal, and Summer's one bad day away from supervillain. And remember, no escape hatch, one Earth, one timeline, one Rick. So what does he do when even he can't gaslight himself into calling this manageable? He goes for a final solution type plan. Rick starts building something way bigger than a portal gun, a universe patcher. Imagine a device that sends out a wave through space-time, standardizing physics, ironing out paradoxes and overwriting every divergent branch into one clean, coherent history. No more Timeline A where Morty died, no more Timeline B where Beth left, no more glitchy side realities, just one official canon track curated by Rick Sanchez. Sounds neat, right? Until you remember what that actually means. You're not just fixing potholes in reality, you're deleting entire neighborhoods. Every alternate version of you that made a different choice? Gone. Every civilization that only exists because of some weird quantum coin flip? Erased. We are talking mass ontological murder. Not just killing bodies, but killing possibilities, memories, and outcomes that technically did happen. It's like Rick looked at genocide and said, cool concept, but what if we did it to the save files? Legally, if you could even write this into a statute, you're off the map. You're beyond war crimes. You're committing the crime of deciding which histories are allowed to have ever been real. And Rick, for some reason, would probably justify it as harm reduction. Fewer universes, fewer victims, right? Just to give you an idea of how broken that logic is, it's like saying, if I delete everyone's medical records, nobody's sick anymore. Technically tidy, morally radioactive, and this is the purest expression of his no-portal psychology. When he can't walk away from a broken world, he doesn't learn to live with it. He tries to force the world into a shape he can live with. He's not escaping consequences, he's compressing them. Every mistake, every crime, every dead alien kid and ruined planet gets laundered into one corrected timeline where Rick gets to pretend it was always supposed to be this way. Picture the final shot of this version of Rick, alone in the garage standing over a console, one big red button. Labelled in his handwriting, make it all make sense. If he presses it, the wars stop, the glitches vanish, the family maybe even gets a do-over. The universe is technically fixed. And Rick is permanently, irreversibly guilty of killing everything that didn't fit his story. Does he press it? Or does he walk away for the first time without a portal? I don't know. I'm kind of here for finding out how far he'll go in the next phase of this thought experiment. Micro-law. Break is a universal reset of victimless crime. So here's the micro-law exam from hell. If Rick nukes his own timeline, deletes a universe full of suffering, and replaces it with one where that suffering never happened, who exactly files the complaint? Who's the victim when the victim slot is now occupied by a happier version of you who has no idea they were once Cronenberg Chow? On paper, it sounds kind of merciful. Billions tortured by Rick's bioweapons, wars, mutant sperm, whatever's on the menu this week. Then he hits the reset and poof, they're all living their best basic sitcom lives. No trauma, no nightmares, just Taco Tuesday. If you ask me, that's a hell of the upgrade compared to died screaming in a goo pile. But legally? Ethically? You don't get off that easy, Grandpa. Think about it like this. Say Rick kidnaps you, tortures you for 3 days, then wipes your memory. Clean slate. You wake up in your bed, no scars, no recollection, just a weird craving for screaming. Did the crime go away? Or did he just commit a second crime on top of the first by messing with your brain? You probably feel fine, but the harm still happened. The pain was real in those days, even if nobody remembers the receipt. Now scale that up to an entire universe. No portals, no alternate Earths where survivors can pop over and say, yeah, he absolutely turned us into furniture. In this single timeline setup, there's no other dimension to testify. No citadel full of traumatized Ricks. No evil Morty building a case file. The only person who remembers the original atrocities is Rick. The defendant is also the star witness. Believe it or not, that's every prosecutor's nightmare and every Rick's dream. You kind of end up with a cosmic statute of limitations that kicks in instantly. The second he rewrites reality, every potential witness, every victim, every angry space lawyer, gone. Not dead in a way you can autopsy, just overwritten. The new universe walks in like, hi, we've always been here, what Cronenberg? Try arguing with a reality that literally has no memory of its own murder, and that's where it gets bleak. Because without portals, there's no council of Ricks to drag him in chains, no multiversal court to say, you can't keep doing this, man. He's stuck in one universe he's edited beyond recognition, and he's the only historian who remembers version 1.0. He becomes judge, jury, executioner, and archivist of his own crimes. So the real sentence for No Portal Rick isn't a galactic prison or being exiled to some dumb Earth. It's solitary confinement inside his own head. Every time he looks at Morty, he knows there was a Morty who died horribly to create this better one. Every family dinner is a crime scene only he can see. Buckle up, because if you think that kind of guilt is going to make him stop, wait until we look at what a reality-locked Rick actually does with that power next. Running total, how much worse, or better, is this universe? So where does that actually leave this No Portal universe on the cosmic damage scoreboard? Is this Rick downgraded to neighborhood menace, or did we just trap a nuke in a smaller room? Because if you ask me, this timeline is quieter on paper and way louder in your nightmares. Quick recap so you can keep the trauma straight. No Citadel, no Council of Ricks, no infinite convention center full of grandpas doing multiversal tax fraud. Evil Morty doesn't have a pan-dimensional voting block to hijack, so he goes local. Targeted coups, media manipulation, maybe a very illegal global surveillance state instead of a Citadel one. Cronenberg Earth. It doesn't get abandoned like a bad save file. Rick doesn't swap in a fresh Beth and Morty. He stays. He has to look at the things he broke every single day. Long-term responsibility, whether he wants it or not. Body count-wise, Canon Rick is like cosmic glitter. He spreads the harm everywhere. You get a Doom timeline, everybody gets a Doom timeline. Most of his worst crimes are survivable for him because he just portal hops out of the blast radius. Here, he can't. So the total number of corpses across reality probably goes way down, but the concentration per square mile, that spikes hard. Just to give you an idea of how messed up that is, Cronenberging Earth in the show is a horror montage and then cut to a new universe, fresh school, same sitcom. In this version, that same outbreak means decades of cleanup, mass graves, mutant ghettos, an entire generation of kids whose baby photos are classified. Every funeral is someone you actually knew, not a statistic from Earthsea 137b whatever. Emotionally, it's a hell of a upgrade in suffering. Canon Rick can literally replace his family with near duplicates. Morty dies? Grab another one. Beth leaves? Slide over to the Beth who didn't. It's monstrous, but it also gives him an emotional safety net. Here, there is no replacement policy. Every loss is absolute. Every betrayal final. Every "I'm sorry" has to land in the same living room where the original crime happened. You don't get to portal away from Thanksgiving, and that turns Rick from a multiversal tourist of his own worst impulses into a trapped caretaker of one increasingly broken world. No Citadel to mock him, no council to put him on trial, no evil Morty overthrowing a cosmic system he accidentally built. It's just him, one planet, one Beth, one Morty, and a stack of consequences higher than his ego. Is that karmic justice, or is that actually crueler than death? I don't know. I'm kind of here for it either way, because believe it or not, locking Rick to one reality doesn't fix the core problem. It just changes the shape of the crime scene. So buckle up, because in the final stretch we're going to ask the real illegal question. Was portal travel ever the issue? Or did it just make it harder to admit what kind of person Rick already was? Was the portal gun Rick's worst invention, or his only mercy? So here's the twist that's probably illegal to admit in a morality video. What if the portal gun wasn't Rick's worst invention, but his only mercy? You take away his green escape hatch and you don't get a safer Rick. You just get a Rick who can't leave the crime scene. Think about it. Portal travel lets him do something horrifying that is also, in a sick way, damage control. Cronenberg your home Earth? Cool, awful, felony on a cosmic scale. But then he bails to a nearby dimension, slides into a version of the family where Rick just died, and spreads the fallout across infinite timelines instead of doubling down on one. It's like environmental crime, but with realities. He's not fixing anything, but he's not escalating that specific universe into a total rewrite either. Without portals, that same Rick is stuck. No Citadel, no Council of Ricks, no casual hopping to a fresh Beth every time he detonates the last one's childhood. You get two versions of the same monster. Version A, Multiverse Rick, who commits a crime, skips the trial, and walks into another courtroom forever. Version B, Trapped Rick, who has to either clean up his mess or keep piling bodies in the same backyard until the whole universe tips over. And if you ask me, version B might be a hell of a lot scarier, because now when he Cronenberg's Earth, he can't just abandon it. He has to look Morty in the eye and decide, do we try to cure this, or do I build something even worse? No portal gun means he starts thinking about universe-scale reboots, time edits, retroactive memory wipes, all the stuff you only consider when you know you can't run. That's not less illegal. That's an arms race with reality itself. Portals also let Rick compartmentalize his guilt. Every time he buries a body, he buries it in a different timeline. Every time he ruins a Beth, he can tell himself, relax, there are infinite Beths. It's emotional money laundering. Believe it or not, that's the thin layer of mercy. He can walk away before he has to numb himself completely. Take that away, and he either breaks down, or breaks bad in a way we haven't even seen. You think current Rick is cold? Imagine the version who had to survive every consequence in one continuous life and decided feelings were the real enemy. So yeah, the portal gun is a weapon, a getaway car, and a war crime generator. But it might also be the one thing stopping Rick from trying to hard reset his entire universe like it's a bad save file. Which raises a way worse question. If the portal gun isn't the root problem, what is, and what does a universe do when the real issue is Rick himself? Buckle up, because the next part is going to answer that, and you might not like the sentence. The constant variable. Rick is the problem. So here's the bad news. Take away the green swirly doors, and the universe still has a Rick problem. The constant variable isn't the portal gun. It's the 70-year-old alcoholic war criminal attached to it. Across both timelines, some core traits don't even flinch. Genius-level intelligence, check. Addiction that could knock out a horse, double check. Chronic depression, contempt for authority, and that deep, buried attachment to his family he refuses to process in any remotely healthy way. All still loaded in the save file. You don't delete that with one less gadget. You just change how the damage renders. With portals, Rick breaks worlds by literally skipping town on reality. Cronenberg Earth too messy. New universe, new Morty, same emotional avoidance. Without portals, he's stuck in one timeline, but he's probably going to wreck it just as hard. He just has to get creative. No Citadel, no Council of Ricks, no evil Morty campaign ad, sure, but you still have one Rick, one lab, and a planet full of test subjects who didn't read the waiver. So what does that look like? Instead of interdimensional bar crawls, you get ground-level sci-fi mayhem. Time machines that glitch people into paste. Bioengineering projects that accidentally rewrite the neighborhood's DNA. AI weapon systems that decide HOA meetings are a threat to galactic peace. The crimes go from cosmic to local, but the body count? If you ask me, it stays impressive in a very illegal way. And the relationships don't magically heal just because he can't hop universes. Rick still drags Morty into experiments, still uses him as a moral crash test dummy, still oscillates between "I'll die for you" and "I'll emotionally abandon you" in the same sentence. Beth still orbits her dad like a dying star, Jerry still gets steamrolled, Summer still gets weaponized as a sidekick when it's convenient. The fights are smaller scale, but the emotional sentence is the same. Everyone is serving life. Here's the pattern a lot of people miss. Portal travel isn't his problem, it's his favorite coping mechanism. It's avoidance you can holster. Take that away, and he doesn't suddenly go to therapy. He just patches the hole with new ways to run. Through time, through memory wipes, or by going full emotional shutdown. Believe it or not, a Rick who can't leave the universe might be even more dangerous, because now his only escape hatch is to nuke his own feelings or his own planet. Swapping out the portal gun is like taking away a pyromaniac's favourite lighter. He's still going to start fires with whatever's left in the room. Matches, wiring, the gas line, your curtains. Pick one. Rick's brain is the accelerant. The tech is just the delivery system. So that leaves one ugly question hanging over this no-portal universe. If the gadgets aren't the root cause, what, if anything, could actually change Rick? Is being trapped in one reality finally going to crack him open and force growth, or is it just going to break him in a slower, more personal way? Buckle up, because the answer might be the cruelest twist this hypothetical has. Could this Rick ever actually change? So let's game it out. You trap Rick in one reality, one family, one set of crimes he can't portal away from. What actually happens to this guy? Does he pull a late-stage character development speedrun, or are we just watching a slower, sadder apocalypse in 4K? Start with the fantasy version. redemption arc. No Citadel, no Council of Ricks, no infinite backup families. Every time he Cronenbergs a town or accidentally wipes a city with some illegal bioweapon, he has to drive past that crater on the way to get groceries. Years of seeing the same ruined neighborhoods, the same traumatized neighbors, the same Beth who never got a do-over dad. That's going to sandblast even Rick's defenses, not into a good person, but into someone who, believe it or not, starts doing maintenance. He quietly detoxes planets he poisoned. He upgrades Earth's defenses because it's the only Earth he's got. He still drinks, still rants about nothing mattering, but then he shows up to Morty's stupid school science fair with a slightly less lethal volcano project. Tiny, boring, consistent acts of care. The kind of stuff that would knock decades off his cosmic sentence if there were a judge paying attention. But dial the slider the other way and you get the collapse arc. No escape hatch means every body, every war, every abandoned experiment is permanently stapled to his brain. Rick's whole coping strategy is leave, erase, replace. Take that away, and you're left with a guy who has to sit with the billion people he didn't save. That's a hell of a mental prison if you ask me. In that version, all those weapons and time travel prototypes in the garage stop being toys and start looking like exit strategies. Maybe he goes for self-destruction, one last illegal experiment that takes him out and nobody else. Or, way darker, he tries to build a universe-level reset button. Not a portal, but a hard reboot that erases everyone, including himself, just to stop feeling like the defendant in a trial that never ends. You want a final crime that no court can even process? That's your guy. The most realistic option, though? He lands somewhere in the messy middle. Rick never fully changes, but he also never fully detonates everything. He oscillates. One decade he's running black market weapons through the solar system. The next he's patching the ozone layer because he got bored. He hurts Morty with one experiment, then spends months half trying to repair the kid's brain chemistry. The world limps along, scarred, weirdly advanced, technically survivable. The Smiths become a traumatized but functional family that knows where the emergency bug-out bags are, and which basement doors you never ever open. It's awful, but I don't know. I'm kind of here for it. And here's where it gets spicy. Without portals, the Smiths' choices suddenly matter way more. Beth can't swap in a less damaged Rick. Morty can't run off with a cooler grandpa from Dimension whatever. Jerry can't get replaced by a slightly better Jerry with a job. Their decision to accept Rick, reject him, or lock him behind about 40 biometric safe shapes the only reality they'll ever get. Just to give you an idea of how different that is, every argument at that dinner table is basically a constitutional convention for the universe. Whichever path he takes, slow redemption, catastrophic collapse, or that bleak middle ground, this no-portal setup forces Rick into the one role he's spent his whole life trying to dodge, someone who's actually accountable. And we're not done tallying what that really costs him yet. Final comparison, the show we know versus the show we built, so let's zoom out and actually stack these two shows next to each other. The Rick and Morty you know, and the cursed no-portal version we've been building. Same grandpa, same family, completely different universe of damage. In canon, the structure is chaos tourism. One episode you're on a cable box where everything is improv. Next you're on a dragon sex planet. Then you're at the Citadel watching a Morty election. It's sketch comedy with trauma. Portals make it easy to hit reset, hop to a new reality, and pretend last week's war crime is just a fun reference. In no portal world you don't get that. You're stuck. Fewer multiverse hijinks, way more long-term arcs. The Galactic Federation isn't just a punchline. It's the HOA for the entire galaxy breathing down Earth's neck season after season. Instead of Rick dipping into a fascist dimension for a gag and bouncing, he's trapped in the same geopolitical mess he created. Planetary recovery stops being a one-episode news montage and turns into an actual storyline. Food shortages, refugee planets, alien sanctions. Every time Rick pulls an "I can fix this" and half fixes it, you're not just going to forget by next week, you're watching a multi-season cleanup of one guy's ego. Believe it or not, that makes the Smiths way more important. You can't quietly replace the family with a fresh dimension when you Cronenberg the neighborhood. If Beth dies, she's dead. If Morty loses an eye, that's the eye now. Tonal shift. Massive. Canon is zany dimension hopping with horror sprinkled in like seasoning. The no-portal cut is slow-burn sci-fi horror and political thriller with jokes duct-taped on top. Rick stops feeling like a cosmic tourist and more like a recurring natural disaster that keeps hitting the same town. Every invention is basically an illegal FEMA nightmare. You still get the body horror and the messed up experiments, but the punchline isn't, haha, different universe. It's cool. Now the global south of the galaxy collapses. I don't know. I'm kind of here for it. Character-wise, everybody gets shoved into a harsher spotlight. Morty doesn't just shrug and follow Rick through a green hole in the wall. He has to choose over and over to get in the ship and help Grandpa negotiate with people who remember his last massacre. Summer probably becomes the face of Earth's resistance PR machine, doing the speeches Morty can't stomach. Beth's agency jumps way up because she's not just the daughter Rick can replace from another timeline, she's the only Beth he gets. Jerry's survival becomes a running question the way Rick's sobriety is in canon. Every season you're asking, is this the one where Jerry's petty screw-up finally gets him spaced? Rick's arc stops being about escape and starts being about endurance. How long can a guy like this stay functional when every old crime keeps showing up at his front door? The crazy part is, taking away portals makes the show feel smaller in scope but way bigger emotionally. No infinite citadel, no council of Ricks, no evil Morty multiverse manifesto. Just one brutally consistent reality that remembers everything. You trade anything can happen for everything has consequences. That's a hell of a swap if you ask me. So picture this. It's Sunday night. You're queuing up a new episode. Do you want the canon ride where Rick can always blink to a fresh start, or the no portal grind where every bad day stacks on his permanent record? Buckle up, because next we're going to decide which universe you'd actually want to live in, and which one would hand Rick the harsher sentence. Closing reflection. One universe, one Rick, one shot. So here's the punchline to this whole no portal experiment. Taking away Rick's portal gun doesn't magically patch his soul. It just means every crime, every bad day, every illegal science project stays stapled to one timeline. No cosmic reset button. No hopping to Earth see whatever when he Cronenbergs this one. It's all on the same permanent record, and the universe can finally say, "Sir, you're not allowed to leave." In that version, Rick doesn't outrun consequences, he marinates in them. Morty doesn't just get swapped for a fresher, less traumatized Morty from down the multiversal street. Beth doesn't get quietly replaced by a variant who didn't grow up with abandonment issues. Jerry probably still loses, but at least he loses in the same universe every time. The story stops being about escape routes and starts being about living with the wreckage you already made. And that's exactly why the original show leaned so hard on portals. They're not just green CGI doorways. They're a visual metaphor for every time you've said, new job, new me, new relationship, new me, new hobby where I definitely don't check my phone 9,000 times a day. Rick's whole deal is, why fix this reality when I can just buy a better one next door? Sound familiar? Or are we all totally emotionally healthy here? Because if you strip out portal travel, you basically get a sci-fi version of adulthood. At some point you realize there is no alternate universe where you magically did your homework, ate your vegetables, and didn't text your ex. There's just this one timeline, this one body, this one set of choices. You don't get to swap out your family like Rick swaps dimensions, you just show up tomorrow and deal with the mess you made yesterday. It's a hell of a concept if you ask me. And before you go, well, at least I'm not a super genius alcoholic who accidentally mutates planets. Congratulations, low bar cleared. But you do have your own inventions. Maybe it's a phone that lets you escape into infinite feeds. Maybe it's workaholism or dating apps or grinding a game for fake currency like your Morty trading days of his life to a time-stopping crystal. Believe it or not, all of that is you building either a portal away from your reality or tools to actually face it. So here's the dark little question the no portal timeline leaves you with. If you only get one universe and one mind, what kind of world are you building with the one portal you do have? Your attention. Where you aim that thing is basically your personal multiverse. And in the next section, we're going to put your attention on trial the same way we did Rick's crimes, and see which sentence you've been quietly serving this whole time. CTA, your turn to rewrite the multiverse, and see which sentence you've been quietly serving this whole time. But now it's your turn on the stand. If you had to pick one show to actually exist, which version are you watching? The chaotic portal gun citadel of Rick's original, where every bad decision can be yeeted into another dimension? Or this grounded, no-portal, slow-burn disaster where Rick is stuck with one Beth, one Morty, and every crime actually sticks to his record? Which universe are you binging, and why are you that kind of sicko? I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. Because believe it or not, both versions are pretty messed up. In canon, Rick Cronenberg's a whole Earth and just skips town. New universe, new family, same emotional war crimes. In the no-portal timeline, he can't do that. He has to sit at the same dinner table as the people he ruined every single night. Which sounds less humane to you? Eternal cosmic genocide or decades of painfully honest family therapy? Buckle up, because your answer says a hell of a lot about your personal multiverse. Drop your verdict in the comments, chaotic multiverse Rick and Morty, or the single timeline pressure cooker we just built. Tell me which episodes you'd want to see in that version. Do you want a Jerry who actually wins for once because Rick can't just portal away? A Beth who finally calls the cops on her dad because interdimensional crime isn't an option, but regular illegal parenting definitely is. And while you're down there, pitch me your own remove one thing nightmares. What if Morty never met Rick and just stayed a weird, anxious kid who thought the craziest crime in his life was failing math? What if the Galactic Federation actually won, locked Rick up for good, and the show became a bleak prison drama about a 70-year-old mad scientist bargaining for extra pudding cups? What if evil Morty was the main protagonist from episode 1, and the whole thing was a long-con political thriller instead of a family sitcom with war crimes? If you want to see any of those, you know the drill. Likes and subs are basically fuel for this kind of reality-breaking analysis. The algorithm is, technically, the closest thing we have to a real-world Citadel deciding which universes survive and which ones get wiped from continuity after 3 days. You tap like, you're voting to keep this timeline alive. You hit subscribe, you're saying, yeah, I'll follow this Rick sentence a little longer, and we're probably not done messing with this universe. I'm already thinking about flipping the whole premise to, what if Morty invented portal travel before Rick, and suddenly the most anxious kid in the multiverse is the one holding the gun? Or we could rerun this experiment on another character and see what their life looks like with one sci-fi rule changed. Either way, you don't get portal travel, but you do get a replay button, so if you made it this far, maybe jump back to the start, watch it again, and see how different this episode feels now that you know exactly where this universe ends up.